All right, today is Thursday, the 9th of 2025 in the month of January. And of course, a lot of things are going on in the world, including today being a National Day of Mourning. Of course, we had a guest on recently talking about that, since it is definitely the day of the funeral of Jimmy Carter, and it's definitely a National Day of Mourning and all along those lines. As I mentioned yesterday, because Jan, who's actually joined us, was the one that told me about it, an icon here in the Durham community, has also passed away and was definitely an icon in terms of civil rights and in terms of a number of other things as well, that being Dr. Lavonia Allison and all along those lines. So definitely we're having quite a few icons that are passing on and all in that kind of way. So in terms of Jimmy Carter, the nation bids farewell to former President Jimmy Carter at a state funeral in Washington. So definitely it looks like Jimmy Carter's funeral is bringing together all five living presidents at Washington Cathedral, and it definitely looks like everybody in terms of the five living presidents were expected to attend this particular funeral and all along those lines. Russia is keeping close eyes on Trump's claims to Greenland, because definitely that is something that folks have been talking a lot about as well, and everything in that space. So a lot of things are going on in terms of how Russia is feeling about the takeover of Greenland. And Lebanon elects a new president after more than 2 years of political crisis. So Joseph Aoun is a U.S. backed army chief elected Lebanon's president, ending a year long stalemate. So it looks like after 2 years of gridlock, they have a new leader there in Lebanon. And it does look like it's somebody that is U.S. backed and all along that space. And a baby born at sea to a migrant off of Spain's Canary Island. So looks like that baby is now en route to Spain. So who knows? Maybe even our one of our founders of the network, Nick Palveda, who now lives in Spain, Barcelona, if I'm remembering correctly, may even get a chance to see that particular young person and all along those lines. And as South Korea's impeached President Yoon awaits his fate, his party sees signs of revival. So South Korea needs to move on from this crisis, according to Bloomberg. So that's something else that we're seeing in the news as well. And in Tibet, Chinese boarding schools are reshaping the souls of the children there. So China placed new restrictions on Tibetan students during the winter school break. Dr. Kalio visited the Tibetan parliament and met the speaker and deputy speaker. And Beijing has implemented new restrictions targeting Tibetan education and cultural practices. And Putin has options for Russian gas after Ukraine route is closed. So the Ukraine says ready to replace Hungary in EU and NATO. So the Russia-Ukraine energy divorce offers a chance for Europe to take control of its own energy security. And Brussels will be watching whether Musk breaks EU law in his far right live stream. So Elon Musk is trying to break Germany's quarantine on the far right AFD. Musk money will help us make Europe a populist haven, according to what Steve Bannon is saying, and all along those lines. And Trump says NATO countries are taking advantage and should contribute 5% to the GDP. So, UK foreign policy chief says Trump is right to urge higher military spending from NATO. So, hopefully, he's going to try to get some higher spending from the NATO countries as well. And FICO says Slovakia could withhold Ukraine aid over halted gas supply. Slovakia's Robert Fico pushes the EU to help restart the Ukraine gas transit. So Fico is threatening Ukraine, saying pump Russian gas or face the consequences. So that's something else that's in the news as well. And as I think I reported not that long ago, a missing hiker was found alive after 13 days lost in the Kasi Kasazuka National Park. So, a Mission Australia hiker was found after surviving muscly bars and berries. So, definitely that is something that we talked about just briefly yesterday, because I was trying to remember what a muscly bar was. And according to officials, more than 46,000 Palestinians have been killed in the Israel Hamas war. So it looks like the death toll from that Israeli war on Gaza has surpassed 46,000. Gaza's population is falling while Israel's growth is slowing. And even in India, there are 6 dead in an Indian temple stampede as free passes draw thousands. So I guess those free passes draws thousands, and then there were 6 that were killed in the crush, and all along those lines. And a jailed Belarus opposition figure Barbarico seen for the first time in months. And like I said earlier, France's far-right party is embracing Jean-Marie Le Pen as a visionary. So that was the far-right leader that died at the age of 96. And a hostage is found dead in the Gaza tunnel, according to what Israel is saying. And that was reported yesterday. And there are grave concerns for a second capture. So that is something that folks are talking about as well. And the Polish president wants ICC indicting Netanyahu to be able to go to the Auschwitz anniversary, according to what aides are said. So Poland will be protecting Netanyahu from the ICC arrest warrant during his Auschwitz visit. So definitely, it looks like he might be getting a chance to visit that area and everything like that. And Italy says Cicely Salia, the journalist detained by Iran, has been released, and it looks like she has returned home and all in that place. And a Japanese crime leader is pleading guilty in the U.S. to trafficking nuclear materials. So it looks like there's a Japanese mafia leader that was caught in a U.S. sting, and he's pleaded guilty, conspiring to traffic nuclear materials to Iran. So that is something else that we're seeing in the news as well. And Venezuela's ultimate political survivor, Nicolas Maduro, faces his toughest challenge yet. So fears on the streets of Caracas as Maduro's inauguration looms. And of course, they are saying he could be the next dictator to fall as Venezuela tumbles deeper into dictatorship, with Nicolas Maduro set to extend his 12-year rule. So that's just some of the things that are going on in the world situation and all along those lines. Let me get to some U.S. news, and then I'll bring some of my folks up as well. One of the things that I know Rick was talking about yesterday, and of course he's very much concerned about it as he lives in that area, is the Palisades fires have grown to 17,000 acres, the most destructive in LA history. So it looks like utilities, insurance stocks, and even some of the homes of celebrities have been impacted, and at least 5 are dead as thousands flee raging wildfires in the Los Angeles area. So we'll have to see how he's doing in terms of where he's living and how things are going in that space. So definitely Biden has canceled his trip to Italy, meant as a final foreign visit of the presidency as the fires rage in California. So that's one of his responses to this particular fire. So I'm guessing he might be going out that way as well. And TikTok, facing a U.S. ban, is also waging legal battles around the world. So TikTok's Supreme Court date is tomorrow. So we'll find out how that goes and what happens in that particular case, as it looks like this case before the Supreme Court pits national security against free speech. So definitely that'll be something that folks will be paying attention to as well. And like I said, I just learned, I think yesterday, that the post office is not running today because of it being a day of mourning for Jimmy Carter and everything like that. And I believe the U.S. stock market is also closed today for that exact same reason. There might be other things, maybe even some banks that are closed, but I do know that a number of things are closed because of the National Day of Mourning. And the Biden administration announces its final military aid package for Ukraine. So Biden has approved a $500 million Ukraine security package 11 days before Trump takes office. So that's right, it's 11 days till Trump will be taking office on the 20th. So a lot of folks will be interested in how this all goes and how many of these things that Biden has done will stay in place, or whether it will be something that will be changing. And Elon Musk says that the Doge probably won't find $2 trillion in federal budget cuts. So Elon Musk is already backing off his one key pre-election promise. He now has a new lower target number for the Doge budget cuts, which might actually disappoint Nick, because I think he was thinking that they could actually get that amount of money and everything like that. But I won't speak for the man. I'll let him speak for himself as I get ready to bring him in, as well as others as also. And apparently Mexico's President Sheinbaum gives us a sarcastic retort to Trump's Gulf of America. So he poked fun at Trump with suggesting a new name for the United States. So part of the U.S. should be renamed America Mexicana, the Mexican president says in response to Trump. So apparently maybe he's going to change the name of some of the ones that are over there by Mexico, like Texas and Arizona and things like that. So before Las Vegas, and another news story, Intel analysts warned that bomb makers were turning to AI. So I feel like Batman, what Tesla driver texted his ex-girlfriend before the explosion outside the Trump Hotel. So the Green Beret, who exploded the Cybertruck in Las Vegas, used AI to plan his blast. and everything like that. So apparently he used ChatGPT to get his plans out there and all along those lines. So, like I said, I'm going to bring in Rick Rosner, and I've got other folks that I'll be bringing in as well, including Sasha Starr. We're going to see if Jan's got his camera and his mic up and running and everything like that. Still don't hear him, so he's got to check out. Might have to go out and in, back out and in, and see what's going on or check the settings because I still don't hear Jan. So Jan might have to come back and everything. But how are you doing? How are the fires going in Los Angeles?
So like my wife evacuated for a little while last night. A fire broke out in Hollywood, about 5 miles from us, and my wife did a lot of packing and got ready to go. And we were arguing about whether we should go. And I'm like, it's still 5 miles away. And anyway, they knocked that fire down, but then a house fire started less than a mile from us. And then my wife left in order to get one of our cars out in case, because in the Palisades, there were huge traffic jams. So she drove about a mile to a library, our local library, which I thought was a good place to get at least we'd have one car out if traffic jammed. But they knocked, they used water copters and they put that fire out pretty quickly. And so we're back home. The neighborhood smells like smoke, but we're okay. A little too exciting.
Sounds like it's a little bit too exciting and everything like that.
Sorry, what?
I said it does sound like it's what too exciting.
Yeah, a huge devastation in Los Angeles, like at least 2,000 homes destroyed, wow. 45 square miles burnt up, twice the area. Yesterday it was the island of Manhattan. Now it's about almost twice the area of Manhattan. Gotcha. It's equivalent to, it would be all of Raleigh. It's 5 miles.
Wow. Hey, Nick, just really quickly, because one of the stories I was curious about your thoughts, and I definitely don't want to belittle what's going on with the fire and everything like that. But apparently Elon Musk is backing off that amount of money that he said that y'all were going to get cut through Doge and everything. So I just wanted your take on this. If he's looking at the numbers and maybe he can't cut as much as he thought he could cut, because it does look like he reduced.
Did he start with $2 trillion? He said he cut through $2. And what's he down to?
I got to know what he's down to, but it's definitely not $2 trillion. So I guess he's thinking that he's got to be more realistic. But I'll look up the number and see what he's down to and everything like that. But I know, like in anything, people even in betting will sometimes pick one number and then have to adjust according to what's going on in that space and everything like that. But it'll be interesting to see what goes on in that. But I know you follow that more than I do. But what's your take as I look up the number that he might be reducing it to? Because I know you've been a big fan of Doge and saying that we need to cut a lot of stuff in government in general, Nick.
Well, Council, we actually went over this at Economics Monday in detail. And we came with the conclusion there's no way that he would be able to do the $2 trillion cut. And part of it is we eliminated all the budgets of all the agencies. And guess what? You don't come up with $2 trillion, Mark. And so
he cut it in half. I just found it. He's saying $1 trillion.
$1 trillion is more realistic. And when we looked at it, Mark, we've already been down this rabbit hole before. My conclusion was Elon Musk did not look at it when he yelled $2 trillion. He didn't look at it real carefully. Now he's starting to look at it carefully. And one problem you have is there's just not enough discretionary cuts that are available to get there. The other problem is you've got to cut the military. It's a huge part of the budget. It's nearly $1 trillion. Part of it is you've got the interest on the debt, which is nearly $1 trillion. So we went over the math on this. When he said $2 trillion, it didn't make sense. And it looks like they need to raise revenues, which is one reason we went into you're going to have to look at raising revenues. In other words, charging for people to go into the Smithsonian, charge them to go into the National Gallery of Art. You're going to have to put in user fees. You're going to have to reinstate the federal estate tax. You can't let rich people just walk away free, which you've been doing for the last 20 years. Okay, I mean, that's impossible. So you got to restart the federal estate tax. It's a great way to collect money, or you have to come up with some innovative ways of taxation. Tariffs might be one of them, but another way is do like they do in Spain. They actually have a weirdo real estate acquisition tax. So revenue raising is also very important, which the Republicans refuse to address, and they're going to have to address it. There is no option. You have to look at how you're going to raise revenues and decrease expenses. You have to do both. So it doesn't surprise me that Elon Musk fumbled the ball already because he didn't look at what he was.
Speaking of fumbling the ball, and another issue that's a legal one, because I know you're a lawyer by trade and everything, but what is your take on TikTok and everything along those lines? Because that was another story that brought up, and I don't know as much about it, and they're saying that it's going to pit national security against free speech, and it'll be interesting to see what is the decision on tomorrow. So what is your take on what we can expect?
First of all, the decision won't be made tomorrow. Tomorrow they're going to have the hearing. I've been up and down. I've had cases. I brought cases before the U.S. Supreme Court, so I kind of know how they work. They will not render a decision once they do a hearing. The decision will be rendered somewhere in October. I mean, it just is the way it is. But here's the problem with that particular case. The problem is it's got to be uniformly applied, non-discriminatory to all corporations. Looks like the law didn't do it that way. So I agree with Adam Lamparero that this law is going to get stricken down, because the thing is they also haven't shown compelling interest as to what the national security issues are. So I think it's a strong case for TikTok, a very weak case where we're bringing maybe the U.S. government, and they're going to lose it in front of the Supreme Court. I'd be really shocked if they didn't. This First Amendment rights are very strong in the United States with freedom of speech, and to create a pretext that Chinese people own the company that's creating this speech, just as they say in Pawn Stars, it ain't happening. Look to TikTok to. I don't know what the Vegas odds say. I'd like to, Sasha Falls Vegas odds. I'd like to know the Vegas odds on this one. I'd be a betting man on TikTok. Yeah, Sasha.
Aniga, I have a couple of questions to you regarding what you said earlier about Elon Musk's and his plans. So the idea is to raise revenue for the U.S. government.
No, he doesn't have that idea. That's the problem, Sasha. See, the problem is that the moronic Republicans don't think in terms you've got to raise revenues and decrease expenses. All they're looking is to cut expenses, but they haven't looked at, nobody has said, okay, how are we going to raise revenues, Sasha? This is Elon Musk's scotoma. You can be a bright guy, but if you haven't read your material and done your homework, you can create really stupid effects. And that's what he did. He didn't do his homework. He just blurted it out.
I think it doesn't matter how bright he is. There are certain circumstances, there are laws of physics and mathematics that even Elon Musk will not be able to overcome. For example, the tariffs. I already talked on this program about the tariffs that will be increase inflation. And inflation is what everybody fears more than anything else. It is an issue where Democrats lost the last election because of the inflation. The economy did well, stock market did well, but inflation. And that one has derailed the Democratic Party efforts. So now they're talking about cutting taxes for rich, for poor, for both rich and poor. How does that affect the overall picture? By cutting taxes, okay, so you are deflating the revenue of the government, and that doesn't bode well. Where are you going to take the money to implement all other initiatives? It's very unclear. Now, what I would propose for Elon Musk is to implement, like you're going to do the tariffs. Why not to do tax on all new IPOs? For example, all the money that people are taking in IPOs, 20% is going to pay down national debt of United States, including Starlink IPO. So what do you think about it, Nick?
Well, I think it's a good idea, but I think rather than 20%, we should make it 10%. It's just like I believe a federal estate tax should be 10% from $1. In other words, there's no reason why you don't have it. The real estate tax they have here in Spain is 10%. So I make my real estate acquisitions. I always got to reserve 10% to go to the great country of Spain.
Yeah.
And I do, Sasha, I try to get rid of the stupid real estate agent because I got to pay Spain 10%. I don't want to pay no real estate agent. So I think things like that would work. In other words, rather than these huge taxes that no one pays anyway, because they find loopholes around it, or they just won't go into that area, do a small 10% tax on IPOs. You know,
that makes sense.
that's flexible. It doesn't matter the tax, it's how much you collect. Remember, the effective tax rate for the Forbes 400 is 8.2%.
Well, hey, that's interesting. Everything. Just really quick, I got a question for Rick, and it's shifting the conversation slightly, but not totally and everything. But hey, Rick, just really quickly, I'm wondering, because I'm thinking that if I'm hearing her correctly, because satire is a wonderful thing, and apparently the new president of Mexico, a young lady, has given a sarcastic remark to Trump's Gulf America, but she wants there to be a new America, and I think that you are part of that. So are you ready to be part of America Mexicana? So apparently she's ready to incorporate your
I'm
area.
fine with that. I was born in New Mexico, which is going to be renamed New America. Remember, after 9/11, we didn't eat French fries anymore. We ate freedom fries. There's some sexual practices that need to be renamed for America. Like there's a thing called Lucky Pierre, which is something that involves 3 guys, and we got to get rid of that French name and put an American, Lucky Chad or something.
So I guess we're gonna have to get rid of. I guess we're gonna have to get rid of.
Or
French
there's the Dirty Sanchez, which we have to rename for the Dirty Johnson. I don't know. We got to.
We have to get rid of. We have to get rid of French kissing, because French kissing is a whole other thing that people love to do.
Yeah.
So that'll have to go. But
The
I did
Dutch
see that
oven,
this.
where the Dutch oven has to become the American oven, where you fart under the covers and then you pull it up over your partner's head so they can enjoy the smell. All that. Ton of work. Maybe Doge can work on
Doge
that.
can get rid of that, but I'm just thinking, like, because I knew you were in California, that you were not going to be part of America Mexicana, and I'm thinking that Nick might even like this idea, because he likes the countries taking over. So apparently this woman wants to take over part of the U.S. and everything. So what do you think of other countries trying to take us over?
I'm in favor of all 3 North American countries becoming one big country. It would be like geographically efficient. We'd get rid of thousands of miles of borders, and we'd be able to send in we can't really invade Mexico to shut down the cartels, but if we teamed up with Mexico, then we could just send in American forces to take on the cartels. All this is ridiculous.
That's all ridiculous. I did have a question for you, because apparently mayors can get in trouble, and there is an African-American mayor that apparently is catching some flack because, and we talked about the importance of Africa, but Karen Bass, while your area was in fire, left LA for Africa, and now.
Okay, so I have a lot of thoughts about this. It's a very bad look for the mayor to be in Ghana, which is 5,000 miles away, while LA is the worst fires in LA history. But really, the MAGAs are going after Newsom. I think in part because Newsom looks strong as a Democratic presidential candidate for 2028. So they're going to be going after him for the next 4 years. And, he's been a decent governor. He's 6'3". Tallness gets you elected. He's got great hair. Great hair gets you elected president. Kennedy, Bill Clinton, Reagan, Warren Harding, Teddy Roosevelt, a nice head of hair is really helpful. So they're going to try to tear him down. We were, before these fires happened, California was supposed to have a several billion-dollar budget surplus. I assume the fires will eat up that surplus, but they're trying to blame him. They're blaming him for low water pressure during the fires. When really it's low water pressure because everybody had their hoses on trying to save their houses. And also the fire department was using water. And also in their panic, people ran over hydrants and knocked them down. So water is spraying in the air. So, you're going to hear a lot of nonsense about the fires over
Yeah,
the next
speaking
4
of
years.
nonsense, speaking of nonsense, and I'm hoping that he is able to get his mic working. You know, he was having problems earlier, but I did hear background noise in the background earlier, so hopefully that means the mic's working. But I know Jan's been an advocate for the veterans and all along those lines. So, Jan, how have things been going in your veteran advocacy work, and what have you got going on? Not just here, but I know you were in Milwaukee with some of the campaigning earlier.
Yes, I were. Had great fun down there with Harris and Walsh, and ran into a lot of famous people down there campaigning. She did extremely well down there in Madison and Milwaukee. But I don't know how many of you guys there have served in the military. We have any guests that have served in the
Well, I know Sasha
military?
served in the Soviet military and everything.
Wow, Lord. Ooh, that's great. But I've had issues, guys, where I've done so many things in my community for veterans and just people in general. But sometimes I find myself under attack unfavorably, and that's very disturbing to me because people say that veterans, they understand what veterans deal with, or they have veterans in their family. Don't mean a hill of beans to me. You talking about you have veterans in your family, but those in your family, how you saying that? But are you reaching out to those veterans outside of your family? So I don't really think people have any real sentiment or sympathy towards what veterans in the military. I have experienced guys thing like people have that. I feel people attack disabled veterans for a complex mix of reasons, often stemming from ignorance, prejudice, and a misunderstanding of their experiences, including stereotypes about vulnerability, anger towards the military, a lack of empathy, potential resentment towards benefits received, or sometimes even a desire to exploit their perceived weakness. I've dealt with that, exploit my perceived weakness, because I dealt with a lady that was a district attorney that was fighting against me in my opposition, my opponent, and I was winning over her, and she attacked my disability. It almost got me in a big situation. So that concerns me, and it still goes on a little bit now because I'm heavy into politics. But it's one thing it says it's important to remember that attacking a disabled veteran is never justified, and it is considered a heinous act. Now, they say some people may view a physical disability as a sign of weakness or incompetence, leading to discrimination or aggression. And I really think that is what exists here. Anyone can say, well, if you've never been in veterans' backyard, you can't, in my opinion, speak intellectually on what they do. And I'm sharing that not just with our panel here. I share that with anyone because I speak about that often. So I wanted to get you guys take how y'all personally feel about veterans, or do y'all feel that they're being mistreated at times?
Well, I'll add to that, and then I'd love to hear Rick's thoughts of that as well. I do know that a lot of times there are veterans that are even panhandling and doing other things, and I do sometimes think that people don't give enough respect to the veterans and understand that there might be reasons that they're out there, whether they're panhandling or whether they are dealing with other parts of what they have gone through, because I do know that veterans sometimes face different mental and physical challenges because of the
the percentages are way the percentages of PTSD and mental illness and homelessness are much higher among veterans than among the general population. And we have 16 million veterans. 5%, 1 American in 20 is a vet. My brother was a vet, and his military service may have killed him. He was on 70% disability and passed away suddenly at the age of 52. And in LA, we see, we have 73,000 homeless people in LA. I don't know how many of those guys are vets and women. It's a huge issue.
Yes, Rick, you I didn't mean to be rude, but you're correct. Let you get back. But you say 70, I'm 100% veteran with bipolar, but I have had a lot of success, like I mentioned earlier, in my community, running for election, doing the major events, being an advocate in our area. Heck, I was just invited to the inauguration of our governor, that was supposed to be this Saturday, but was canceled because of the winter storm. I was invited to a wedding this Saturday, but it was canceled. So I've been involved doing a lot of things in our community, but I find myself under attack. And I really don't think people that claim that they are concerned are really not as concerned as they claim they are. And I'm speaking of any veterans from any branch. I was in the United States Navy. I think I mentioned, as some of you all know. And I deal with mess, but I have to blow it off. My friends have to tell me, man, you're bigger than that. Don't get caught up in the sauce or what people say you, Jan. You worry too much about what people think. And some of them hating on you because of the success you have. Now, I don't have a lot of stuff materialistic, but I'm liked by a lot of people. And sometimes when you like about a lot of people want to hate on you because they feel like they just as much as you are, but you are not. More people are desirable of me and what I can do for them instead of them. And it brings on to me that it's just jealousy and envy. And then I'm a disabled vet, and I find myself sometimes hearing cute remarks, but I don't need to correct those people because those people that are close to me correct those folks. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention. It gets me hot, but it's just not about me. It's about veterans as a whole, not just in the United States, across the world that deal with homelessness, jobs, and all those guys y'all talking about out there, asking for money. Now, some of them out there seriously cannot get jobs, can be some well-educated people with different backgrounds, different races, and they are easily stereotyped when they ask them, well, I'm not going to get that person. They can go and get them a job. But how do you all know who those people are? You all in those people's minds? It's people quick to pass judgment on veterans. I always give people a couple of $2 or $3. But my lady friend be asking me every time, Jan, give that person some money. I said, well, you give them some of your money because every time we go see somewhere, you're always asking me to give people money. But so that's just, I don't want people trying to stereotype and pass judgment when they see these folks on the street. They're not as fortunate as I am. I get 100% disability, about $3,000 something dollars. I get Social Security, and I work part-time. So I don't mind reaching out, but I have to limit myself because I'm a little bit too generous to some people. I got to take care of Jan first.
You definitely got to take care of yourself and everything really quickly. Just really quickly before that, Sasha, I was just wondering, because like I said, you were in the Soviet Army, and of course you live there in Canada, and I know it's been many decades that you've been in Canada. How do you feel that the veterans are treated in other parts of the world that you've been in, whether that's the Soviet Union or Canada, compared to the way that we treat our veterans here in the United States? So how is the comparison?
It's a difficult question, Mark, because you have to go from country to country, and this is not an issue that takes headlines or newspapers or television programs or so on. So, based that there are not too many complaints, as you know, it seems to me that they are hopefully treated with respect and with dignity, and I hope not otherwise.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense and everything.
Mark, there was a question that came up by, I'd like to get the panel's opinion on it. It deals with mandatory conscription. In other words, David Walker is apparently a proponent of mandatory conscription, that every American serves 2 years, let's say, either in the service or in a service-related environment. So I'd like to get the panel's thought on that. Should America go back to mandatory conscription?
Nick, I'm talking about it for the last 2 years. So.
Yes,
And what are your thoughts on that, Sasha? What's your thoughts?
My thoughts is that, you see, America today is very complicated society, a divided country, and there are so many like people who live in, for example, Northeast, they have very little in common and understanding of people who live in south of the country, and so on and on and on. So I think that the service would at least attempt, and hopefully it will succeed, to unite Americans from all walk of lives, from all geographical regions, and that would help to, if you're talking about the nation building aspect of it, I think it's incredible. Also, it helps to provide a more coherent military force for the United States, and it makes society healthier, so to speak, because people in armies are learning a lot of useful life skills. So that should definitely be on the agenda, and hopefully soon to be implemented.
Well, I'm going to take a little bit of a different.
I also just want to bring up one more point for those people who are listening who actually have Netflix. If you haven't seen this on Netflix, Maestro Blue. Okay, Sasha, my wife is addicted to that. I mean, every night. So 19 episodes, and it's kind of a great thing. So you have a chance to watch it on Netflix.
What's the film called again?
It's called Maestro Blue.
Okay, I'll check it out and everything, because I know I've also got on my watch list.
I've been watching it, and I'm about 3 episodes in, and I know what's going to happen. The incredibly good-looking guy is going to start banging the wildly good-looking young woman, but they haven't hooked up yet. It's taking a long time, and I'm a little annoyed.
Sometimes stories.
You know what? It's not going to happen, by the way.
That's
what you're
talking about me.
Then what's the point of the show? Boobs are always about to fall out of her
Hold on a second. Hold on a second, Nick. Backing up just really quickly and everything, because I was going to answer the question that you asked Sasha and everything. I have never been a fan of the mandatory drafts, and that's just me. And I do have friends like Jan and others that have been in the military, including some relatives that have been in the military. But if there has to be a mandatory draft, I would say that it has to have more than one component and everything. So I've not been a fan of mandatory draft, just because I have some issues around some of the ways it is done on both a class way and not other things. So it needs to be fair. And I would also urge that if it's done, that you have that option that you gave, that if you don't do that not everybody does 2 years of military services, but they also have the option of doing something like a Peace Corps or an AmeriCorps or something like that. So if we have mandatory service, then I think it needs to be not just a military service as an option. That would be my caveats to it. If we implement it, I think it needs to have a caveat that it can be some other type of service that is included as well, because even some of the great national parks and some of the great things that were done with the New Deal were done with public workers and workers that were doing the jobs to some of those kind of programs, in my understanding of them.
Mark, I think you're missing the most important thing of a mandatory military service as a nation building, because, well, I remember my time in the Soviet Army. So people from Far East and from South republics of Russia, there's completely different people, different background, religion, even languages, and so on. But the fact that they were staying together in one barrack, and they had to help each other to survive. So they have to depend on each other, have to trust each other. That's a nation building element. And I think, I don't know, there are some drawbacks, perhaps, but I think
to your point, Sasha, and I agree, and I hear what you're saying, and I've said on this show, and I'll say it again, that that's where I think that nation building doesn't have to necessarily always be the military, because one of the things that I observed, and others observed during the pandemic and other times that there were crisis and everything, but sometimes the nation building can be very much at a time that there are things that are happening that draw people into non-military reasons to bond and everything. Even I see a lot of people that were bonding in the mountain areas of this area because they wanted to help those people from the mountains, and the same with people going to New York to help in 9/11 when that happened way back in 2001 and everything like that. So I think the nation building can happen without the confines of a military conflict. But that's just my opinion. others may disagree. But Jan, you're here with us. You were in the military and everything. What is your thoughts around this notion of bringing national service or bringing the draft back? Because you were in the military. I was not.
I think certain things should be modified because we're in a different era now when it comes to drafting people. Now, some people can be drafted some disabilities as far as, and they're very strict. They've been very strict, and you know how Trump is with LGBTQ plus. They don't feel comfortable with a lot of those folks being in the military in the United States. I don't know how it is across the world, but those people are very important. They do great things, and we miss out on things like that. So they need to modify certain things when it comes to the draft, in my opinion. And a lot of modification need to be done there. Now, man, hopefully that is what they do, but I feel like it can be a error somewhere where people can be everyone can be satisfied. But I think it may kind of hurt us more than benefit veterans in the, military personnel that are trying to enter. So that's just my opinion on it.
Appreciate it and everything like that. Rick, were you going to add something?
Sorry, I was multitasking. Sorry.
That's cool. I didn't know if you had thoughts around the draft as well. If you mentioned having a brother.
Okay, America's way too selfish right now for the draft. We had the draft from World War II up through 1973, and that's more than 50 years ago. And since then, I don't think it's going to happen. You would have to. There might be some way to incorporate military service. You'd have to offer America a really kick-ass benefits package. Free university, discounted, home loans, a whole ton of stuff. But maybe you could fold it into an overall public service opportunity where you give America 18 months or 2 years, you give it to the military, you give it to constructing highways, you give it to teaching, but look at Americans. We are more dickish than we were during World War II. Social media has convinced us that we're all pretty special. Imagine 4 million Americans got drafted into World War II, 10% of them got killed. I can't imagine persuading millions of Americans to have a 10% chance of getting slaughtered.
I hear what you're saying in that space. I do have a question coming back to not so much to the military, but coming back to the person that we're celebrating on this National Day of Mourning and all along these lines. And I'm actually going to throw this at Sasha and everything like that and everything. But Jimmy Carter credited his longevity. He did make it to 100 to his happy marriage. And I know that you've been together with your wife, a fellow chess player, for a number of years as well. So apparently he had this quote, marry the best spouse, and it's one that hasn't found that best spouse yet. What is your thoughts about marriage being the key to longevity? Because apparently that's what Jimmy Carter, who is now being laid to rest, thought was the reason that he was able to make it to 100, and actually he outlived his wife and everything. But what is your take on that, Sasha, as one that is, I don't know how long you've been married to your wife, but I know it's been a number of years because you met her on the chess circuit, if I remember correctly.
Well, make it 50 plus.
Oh, wow.
I think it contributes to longevity quite a bit, and it provides a substance. It provides the purpose in life, and obviously we cherish each other interests and trying to help them and be part of it yourself as well. And we have a lot, if not all, common interests, such as whether it's a chess or traveling or spending time with friends and just enjoying life together, watching movies together, go to shows, theaters, as much as we can, and that provides a great joy.
That makes sense. Yeah. Nick, what's your take on that? Because you've been with your wife for a number of years as well. Like I said, Jimmy
I
Carter.
can't beat Sasha. I have 40 years, like 40 years, not 50 years.
Oops,
And
there we
I didn't marry a chess player. She's actually not a chess player, but she did get a master's in tax from USC and has 2 other bachelor's degrees. So, but sometimes I think I'm, because I was looking at ABBA and I saw how many times they got divorced and remarried. I think it's just because I'm a boring person. So I'm married to the same person for 40 years. What can I tell you? You know, a boring, lazy guy here. But does it contribute to longevity? From what I understand, the answer is yes, it does. So that doesn't surprise me that Jimmy Carter lived to age 100. But also, in my family history, there are very few, if any, divorces. I mean, through my family and extended family, because they're Catholics, and Catholics don't get divorced. So keeps life simple, and so I lead a pretty simple life. What can I tell you? Oh, Rick, it's complicated. We'll go see what Rick Rosner has to say.
My wife and I are in our 34th year together. Well, if you count living together before we got married, it's like 39 years. We've been in couples counseling for 30 plus years because we have good insurance that pays for it. And yeah, frickin', I did a ton of crazy crap when I was single trying to get laid. And, you know, like being in a long-term relationship has really, you know, calmed me down and reduced the number of self-destructive idiot things that I do.
Hey, speaking of
And, you know,
self-destructive
she
stuff,
helps.
yeah, speaking of self-destructive stuff, and y'all were mentioning Netflix movies, I'm going to mention one that I've heard good things about, even though I've yet to watch it, but I hear great things. I'm going to go ahead and mention it. But you, Rick, were a bouncer at one time and everything. So I was just wondering, would you ever take on when you were in your dating life, a spouse that was a boxer? Because one of the popular movies that's out there now that a lot of people are really singing the praises of is about the boxer.
You know, So, all right. So one of my kinks is I like a big, strong woman, and my college girlfriend was also a bouncer. She, you know, she was 5'9", 155, and she was a better bouncer than I was. She could take people to the ground, put them in a pretzel better than I could. And you know, so yeah, I would.
What about yourself?
You know, but she was.
Go ahead.
As far as what was the question again?
Whether you would date a woman that was stronger than you, because one of the popular movies out now is about the woman that was a boxer and Olympic champion, Clarissa Shields, and you can look it up on Netflix. It's called The Fire Inside. She was living in a very rough neighborhood in Flint, Michigan, and went on to become famous as a female boxer. And definitely
very much so, I would date a lady that is stronger than me, as long as she keep her sexuality. And I heard someone speak about younger ladies. Well, I'm 64, and I hang out sometimes with respectable, I would call respectable ladies, not street ladies. They're in their 40s, 50s. There's been ladies I've been around, guys. I hung out. Y'all gonna call me crazy. Hang out with them at my place for an hour and a half. And I give them $400 once a month. And the younger ladies, and but I'm getting back to strength with, of course, the lady boxes, if she's strong, but she keeps that sexuality. And I hope you're not talking about strong-minded, headstrong, because it's different between a strong-minded lady and a headstrong lady, but you're talking physically.
Physically strong.
Yeah, well, they can be physically strong, and strong-minded, but I don't want them headstrong, because that brings on a lot of breakups and separation and divorces. And I'm not trying to go there, and y'all know separation and divorces are more higher than marriages in the world.
Well, you can say, Rick, and I got a question for Sasha about a world issue that we've talked about on this story before. But go.
We're breaking up a lot. I get with the fires and the winds, we're getting bad internet service, so I might break up. But a strong woman probably has high testosterone. Testosterone makes you horny, which makes for sex, which is, I mean, my bouncer girlfriend and I got up to all sorts of stuff. And it made life when we weren't having sex like kind of scary. But, while we were, it was great.
You in LA, we in North Carolina. There's a totally different. Y'all more liberated out there. Send me one of them there gals over there in LA, send them back here in North Carolina, when the muscle-bound gals. And you talk about sexuality. When I'm 64, and I don't think I'm losing. Send me one of those. You speaking for California. I don't think you speaking for North Carolina.
Yeah, speaking of that, and speaking for folks around the world and everything.
I'm 64 too.
Both of you are 64. Sasha, quick question for you, because apparently Russia is keeping, come back to our favorite person, Trump, but apparently Russia is keeping close eyes on Trump's claim to Greenland. Does this mean that Russia wants Greenland as well? Because apparently Russia's Kremlin says it's watching Trump's pursuit of Greenland closely. So why do they care whether we get Greenland or don't get Greenland? So it's a little small country that's in the middle of nowhere. I know it's close to Russia, but are they really keeping a close eye on Trump's claim to Greenland, and do they really care?
I look at it at much deeper point of view, and it's not as funny as you think.
Okay.
I think Trump endorses Putin's claim on Ukraine and all other former Soviet republics by making claims on Greenland and the Gulf of Mexico or Panama, or all that garbage. See, the thing is that it's very easy for him to advance idea of peace in Ukraine by taking Russian side, that Russia was almost forced to attack Ukraine. The Putin is not such a bad guy. It's his territory. It's his zone of influence. And he was trying to just do the obvious geopolitical thing as to establish his power as the by far strongest country in that region. And he justified Putin by saying, okay, but I can do in my sphere of influence same thing. What is my sphere of influence? It's obviously United States, it's Atlantic Ocean, it's the Pacific Ocean, and all the territories, including Greenland, that Dutch is Denmark.
Denmark, right?
Denmark. Denmark has historical ties to it, but it's so far away. The Greenland people, they tolerate the Denmark's power, but nothing more than that. There is no, at any point you can suggest that they're the same people with Denmark's proper and so on. So it's a kind of a loose confederation, and it's a fairly easy target for Trump to try to acquire. I don't understand the mechanism. Is he going to buy it from Denmark, or he is going to wait and just say to Denmark, well, look, it just happened. Okay, we'll settle with you one day. Don't worry. I don't know the mechanism, but at least all that is only one goal: to justify Putin's claim on Ukraine and all other countries in that region by claiming that he is absolutely justified of doing that. And so we are justified to do that in our part of the world. That's his main point of doing this claims.
I figured he was just going to buy it. I figured that's why he sent Don Jr. over there. So I figured he was just going to try to buy it because, as Nick has said several times, he's very transactional. So I figured they were just getting ready to try to buy the property, just like you would buy a farmland or something like that. I did have a quick question, and we only got 5 minutes to go for this. Is for you as well, Sasha. Is it the norm? And I know that today is a national day of mourning. I didn't realize until yesterday that there's no need for me to check the mail because there's no mail running today because it's a national day of mourning and everything. And I also realized that the stock market was closed. So is doing these national days of mourning, is it common for the stock market to be closed, or is this something that is a rarity because of the loss of Jimmy Carter, or is this something when a major president passes away that we do regularly? Because I can't remember whether the stock market was closed when Reagan died or some of the other ones died. And I'm just being honest.
I think closed, yeah. Well, I mean, there are not so many presidents yet to die, so to keep market closed, and this is kind of let's say, inconvenience actually to have market closed because look, especially as our visit frequent contributor to modern investing, Dr. Milan Sombarak. What he's doing every morning at 9:30, he's selling covered calls on SPY, SPY index. And so basically he's losing money today because he cannot do it. And but that's something what you have to live with.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Like I said, I wasn't sure how that worked because I just noticed it. Like I said, literally, that the post office was closed. I think I got it noticed it. Don't bother checking your mail and everything like that because the mail's not running. So I can't go check on. Well, I guess I can't go check on our post office.
So I found an article. So
yeah.
All right. So the National Day of Mourning began after Lincoln's assassination in 1865.
Okay, so that was the first National Day of Mourning was after Lincoln was assassinated on that infamous day.
Yeah, because I mean that was a sad ass day.
Oh yeah, definitely. John Wilkes Booth killing him at that theater and everything along those lines, and definitely was not a Ford Theater, right? I remember which is the name of the particular theater. What's the big news item? Because we only got about 4 more minutes to go. That's coming out of Spain. We've touched on a number of things today, including veterans' rights and everything. But what is the news of Spain that you are looking at? Because it's evening time, which means it's about time for their news report to be going on. So what's the big story out of Spain?
They have the ultimate hour, but mainly they have what they call petite corruption here, Mark. And so the thing is, what's on the news almost every day is some officers getting investigated by doing something corrupt in Madrid. And that's like the big thing here. The other thing that they're showing a lot of is what's going on in California, those fires. They're pretty impressive. It looks like a lot of the people who had big Hollywood, they love Hollywood here, okay? So all these Hollywood homes all got burned down. And now here comes the interesting thing, because Ron Paul was saying, why should the federal government subsidize insurance for wealthy people? And he's got a point. He did a whole expose on, look, these people are not entitled to live on the beach, live on cliffs, buy $100 million homes, $50 million homes, and then make us pay for their insurance. So the thing is, he went through a whole litany. This government-supported insurance needs to stop. I totally agree with Ron Paul. If you want to live in California, you want to live on a cliff, you want to live in an area which is subject to fire, pay the going rate for insurance. Don't ask the people in North Carolina to pick up your insurance tab.
But if I heard you right, Nick, and I'm not gonna say we don't got too much to go, but if I heard you correctly on the migrant issue, you would have, whether it's migrants coming here or migrants coming to Spain, and I did mention at the beginning of the story the baby that's en route.
Wait, I want to talk about one more thing about the fires. You have thousands of firefighters, all with like great abs, coming to fight the fires from all the neighboring states, thousands of them, and they're mixing with hot Hollywood celebrities, so a silver lining is 9.5 months from now, we're going to have a crop of very hot babies to cast in your movies and TV shows.
It sounds like that might be the case and everything like that. It's been, yeah, because they're probably getting together. But just really quickly as we get ready to head on out and everything, did I hear you correctly, Nick, that you wanted to tax the migrants, including the migrants that are coming?
Absolutely. And also the state of California should not bail these rich people out. If they don't have insurance, let their homes burn down and too bad for them. So when Rick says,
we accept that the insurance companies have been canceling policies left and right for hundreds of thousands of homeowners because of these fires. They don't want to face the so somebody could have had their insurance. We had to retype our whole house in order to have.
It's not the government's function to pay rich people insurance and subsidize their insurance. And if they're living in areas which are uninsurable, too bad for them. They self-insure, or they can do like everybody else does, move or pay the consequences. The state of California should give them zero.
I don't think Malibu. Hold on, I don't think Malibu is uninsurable. Those $5 million, $10 million houses.
Hey, look, the state of California should not be paying anybody in Malibu $1 if their home got burned down or got killed by a tidal wave or fell into the sea because of an earthquake. It is not the function of the government. It's their problem in Malibu. If they lost their money, so too bad, so sad. I could care less here in North Carolina. And Newsom, if he ever grow up, which he never will say the same thing. He goes, look, you're rich, you knew the risk, and too bad you lost. But don't ask people in the state of California to pay for your $100 million home that just got burned down. It's your problem, buddy. Next.
It just really quick, and then we'll hit the end button, and I'm going to hit the end button. I have to ask you this really quick question because we're going a little bit over. Do you think that the state is responsible for elderly care? Because I was actually talking to a friend of mine, and he was telling me about the things that he went through with his mom and their check account, and even to put a thumbprint literally on a check in order to get the check, and then they realized that there was too much red tape to go through that. But there were folks dealing with elderly care, including the person I mentioned yesterday that was a kingmaker. So do you think that, because I know there's a lot of things you don't think that the state is responsible for or the federal government, but are they responsible for helping to provide elderly care? Is that something that is a state or federal function in your mind?
That's a huge conversation, but currently the answer is no. That's the reason you have long-term care insurance. And the producers or the agents that we have that work on our office in Salt Lake and around the world sell a lot of long-term care insurance. So it's the responsibility of the individual. What you got to do is wake up and say, look, life is your responsibility. Don't ask other people to pay for it. And what I really hate is the rich people in California asking the poor people throughout the state of California to pay for their $100 million homes. Forget it. If it burned, they didn't have insurance. Too bad, so sad. Let's move on, please.
And on that note, we're going
to get Sacramento to pay for it, please.
And we're going to get on out of here. I think that on tomorrow, not today, but on Friday, we'll be recording the Chet Show for Saturday and all along those lines, if I'm remembering correctly. So that'll be the next time that I'll see Sasha, except for seeing him later on this evening when we have world politics and everything along those lines. So we're going to get on.
Ukrainian show tomorrow.
Yes.
At 11. And just recently, it's almost breaking news, there were particulars of the help that is provided to Ukraine. It's a latest package. It's been announced just around 9:30 in the morning, just an hour ago or hour and a half. And according to that, the Pentagon announced that the package includes AIM-7, RIM-7 and other missiles for air defense, air-to-ground missiles, equipment for F-16s, armored breach layers, and so on and on and on. So it will be very interesting how that will interact with the Trump idea to justify Putin's invasion of Ukraine. Let's see next few days, we will find out more about it.
Yep, and we'll hear more about it from you and Dr. Jonathan on tomorrow, and maybe even Ivan, who might be coming in from Kyiv. I know sometimes he comes in, sometimes he doesn't on Friday, but we'll see if the three of you have that engaging conversation. I know I learn a lot every time that y'all do that on Tuesdays and Fridays. So I'm a big endorser of the Ukraine, Russia, China show because I think y'all do an amazing job and look forward to seeing y'all again on tomorrow having that conversation.
Bye-bye.
Bye.